Hi, I'm here to talk to you today at my Ignite Talk about cutting cloud costs during COVID-19 and a few of the strategies that my team used, three in particular, to reduce our spend. My name is Jeff Smith. I'm the Director of Production Operations here at Centro in Chicago. This slide was taking longer than I anticipated. I also wrote a book, Operations Anti-Patterns with DevOps Solutions, coming out in the fall, so please buy it so I can feed my family. So the first method that we used was the tried and true Amazon EC2 reserved instances. And reserved instances are basically a billing construct on AWS's side where you commit to a particular level of compute and enter into an agreement, and with that agreement they give you a reduced pricing. So typically the things that you make a decision on are 1 to 3 year term. You agree to commit to that spend though monthly, regardless of if you actually use it or not. And then you have different payment options where you can do all upfront, no upfront, or a mix of the two. Now, depending on your level of commitment, Amazon will pass to you different levels of savings. So you can see here, all upfront gives you the highest benefit with 41% off, but even if you don't do any upfront, you're still talking about 36% savings over the on-demand cost. So that's a real easy way to save money. The catch though is what we call reservation frustration. And that's again reminding you that you are committing to this spend whether you utilize the instances or not. So it's very easy, say in a pandemic, to no longer need as much compute as you needed previously, but now suddenly you're stuck paying for that stuff anyways. So be careful with reservation instances. Another thing that we looked at was just shutting down what we're not using. Now, that's not particularly new for us, but when we took a look at it and got more aggressive about it, we realized that just shutting down instances after the business hours, so from the hours of 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., Monday through Friday and over the weekend, we were looking at a 37% reduction in savings versus the reserved instance price, not even the on-demand price. So you're talking $39.42 per month for a reserved instance or $24.48 if you're just using regular instances on demand and shutting them down. Spot instances was the third thing we looked at. And that's basically AWS selling you their excess compute. And because it's excess compute, they're giving you really aggressive discounts, sometimes as high as 90%. Your mileage may vary, but for us, we saw that we were seeing a minimum of 37% reduction versus the on-demand pricing. But the other nice thing about this is if you mix the spot instance working hours with just shutting instances down in the evening, we were looking at $4.92 per instance if we only left it running Monday through Friday. Now the nightmare scenario with spot instances is if capacity gets high and they need extra volume, they're going to start terminating instances, and your instance could be terminated. So the fear is you're running a production workload and suddenly instances get shut down. But there's a few different ways to protect against that. One is instance flexibility. So in your spot request, you can request multiple instance types so that if one becomes in high demand, it'll roll over to another instance and then another instance. And even if you have to oversize your instances, you're still looking at a savings over the on-demand price. The other one is mixed instance policies. With that, you can request in the same auto-scaling group on-demand capacity as well as spot instance capacity. So you can say, I need 3 on-demand instances to ensure that work is always being served, but then to fill out the rest of the workload with spot instances. With spot instances, you also get a nice notification that allows you to shut down your applications cleanly. So you can basically monitor when you get this response, you know that you need to shut down your workload because the instance is going to be terminated. So with spot instances, a lot of people are nervous and they say, where do I start? I would say look at interruptible workloads, look at background infrastructure tools, and look at stateless applications as the easiest places where you can probably implement spot. What we did was we used our Jenkins CI build slaves because the workload is typically ephemeral anyways, so you really don't care about the stuff on that instance. If you have different node types and labels in your CI tool, you can really limit the blast radius, and the impact on developers is really that they just need to rerun the build. So you can get a lot of mileage out of that. People also ask about spot instances and like what the frequency of interruption is. Since May, we've seen less than 2% interruption rate across instances. And when we see it, it's typically in batches. We'll see a chunk of interruptions on one day during a 4-hour period. Now there's a few caveats. One is that RDS is usually the biggest spend component and there's no spot instance version of RDS. 2, if we're doing the sleep-wake strategy that we talked about, you really have to coordinate how your instances come up and down to make sure dependencies are available for things like web servers. I would highly recommend you look at the AWS config tool as well. That allows you to ensure that all of your resources are meeting tagging responsibilities, because there's nothing worse than trying to look at your bill and having huge chunks of spend that hasn't been allocated to anything. You just get like a no tag key environment or something like that. So I know that's a lot to talk about in a short period of time, but if you want to hit me up on Twitter, I'm at Dark and Nerdy and would love to chat with you more about it. Thanks.